Hello, my name's George Farmer and I'm a full-time aquascaper.
So my name is Justin Spall and I run the company H2Oplants.com.
My name's Taylor. I have a YouTube channel called Simply Betta.
My name is Joel. I'm a YouTuber.
All right, my name is Jimmy Nguyen. I am an editor for Aquarium Co-op full-time.
Hey guys, my name is Zenzo Tazawa.
My name is Ray and I'm from Ray's Aquaria.
My name's Sean Peck. I go by Pecktec on YouTube.
My name's Corey McElroy. I own Aquarium Co-op.
My name is Rachel O'Leary and I work predominantly with fish under 2 inches, over 2 feet, and planted aquariums.
My name is Joey Mullen. I'm an aquarium hobbyist from Nova Scotia, Canada.
And I'm Alex, and this is Tank Tested. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you can follow all of my future videos. Now, here are 12 YouTubers answering your aquarium questions.
I first got in the hobby when my son brought home a carnival goldfish where we needed to kind of figure out how to take care of him, and we did a lot of online research to try and figure that out. The fish actually lived, and we gave it to a friend that had a much bigger pond after he grew out of the tank that we had for him.
So I got into the hobby because I decided I wanted to pursue breeding betta fish. And my goal was to get into the show circuit, and the ultimate goal is to win a trophy, because I just think that'd be so much fun. And so I did. I just started doing it and it snowballed.
What got me into the hobby in the first place was my dad had kept an illegal Asian arowana, and he had this 100-gallon tank that he always climbed in. He's handicapped, he only has 1 leg, so watching him crawl into that beast of a tank was always something exciting for me.
I got into the hobby through my wife buying me a fish tank. She seen how I was reacting and how calm and collected I would be at the pet stores, like the fish stores, and she wanted more of that, so she bought me a fish tank.
So 2002, I bought my first aquarium, which was an off-the-shelf system. I failed abysmally, grew algae, bought non-aquatic plants, and not being one to give up, did a load of research, figured out what I was doing wrong, and then discovered the work of Takashi Amano, and then the rest is history.
So I live in San Francisco and we have a beautiful aquarium there, and my first exposure to the aquatic life was going there as a young child and seeing these amazing displays.
I saw a fish tank that I really liked at a store, and I convinced my wife to get it for me for Easter. And within a month, we had another fish tank. And then I saw some more fish I really wanted to keep, and they're like, oh, you can't keep those together. So I got another fish tank, and it grew and grew.
I got my first fish tank when I was like 4 or 5 years old. It was a 2-gallon plastic hexagonal tank. And from there, I just got more and more fish tanks. I've gotten in and out of the hobby a couple of times, but I've always been interested in aquatic life. Now I'm more interested in plant life than I was before, but I still love both plant and animal life in the aquarium.
My family had fish, so we had an aquarium in our living room that over the years housed anything from Oscars to small community fish. Didn't really keep fish when I was in college, but once I started my family right after college, I got interested in the hobby again, basically because of the genetics and the heritability of certain color traits in apple snails.
I was actually a member of an old forum called the Planet Tank Forum, and that's actually where I started to see other people, especially women in the hobby, like Rachel O'Leary, and that's when my interest really started to kind of evolve from just being that little girl with a fish tank.
I was a medical oxygen delivery person. So what that means in a quick spiel is you get out of the hospital, you've got pneumonia, you need oxygen. I would show up at 3 o'clock in the morning, teach you how to use it even though you're super crabby and you hate people because you're sick, and I would get you through that process. And I was doing that all hours of the night, getting lots of overtime, making tons of money, but I could never go to the movies because the minute you went into the movies, boom, you gotta go set someone up. So I got into aquariums, and when I did that, I spent all my money, because you can aquascape in the middle of the night, you can breed fish in the middle of the night, it doesn't matter, and you stumble forward a few times and you're here where I am today.
I do have a favorite betta fish, and I have my favorite golden male, and he's just my little pride and joy. And I'm really looking forward to working with him, and he's my baby.
My favorite fish is the celestial pearl danio. My second favorite fish would be the rainbow fish, mostly all kinds of rainbow fish.
It's very hard for me to pick one because I am so passionate about my African cichlids, but probably my kind of guilty pleasure, and I can't have one because of where I live, is koi fish. So if I were to pick one fish, it might It might be koi fish.
It kind of rotates in a big cycle. I really love ancistrus or bristlenose catfish. And second only to that would be maybe the peacock gudgeon.
My absolute favorite fish that I own right now is I call her my big blonde Polypterus emblicari. She's a saddled biker. The first monster fish that I got, and I absolutely adore her.
So my favorite fish is actually a German blue ram. I don't know what it is about them. They're just so cool. They just have good personalities, and that is definitely why they're my favorite fish.
So for me, it's guppies. I love every time I walk into my fish room, there's new babies. That's super fun for me. Like it's not money related or anything like that. It's a little like, oh, I did it right.
Oh man, it's incredibly difficult, but if I had to pinpoint, okay, Celestial Pearl Daniel. Far and away, just my favorite little tiny fish that's just amazingly good looking, nice personality, doesn't eat shrimp.
My favorite fish that I currently have, I don't necessarily have one. It's difficult to, it's kind of like I've got 2 children as well, and it's hard to say which one you love more, right? And I'm not saying my fish are my children, but I just like all of them for specific reasons. Yes, I don't have a favorite, unfortunately. Sorry, that was anticlimactic.
My favorite plant? No, I don't have a favorite plant at all. I love plants. I just don't have a favorite.
I really love Anubias. Is it Anubis or Anubias? My favorite plant would be Anubias.
Narrowleaf Java fern, or Anubias, or buces.
I like Anubias, I like Java ferns, and I like Java moss. Because I can't kill them.
If I could only have one plant, I think it's Vallisneria, because a Vallisneria jungle that fills in looks good no matter what fish you put in with it, and most people can be successful. I can neglect it, and you can plant just a sprig, you come back in 8 months, and you've got this lush jungle.
I think my favorite plants are the hair grasses, and that's because when you first get into planted tanks, I think everyone wants to get one of those nice underwater lawns, and I've never quite gotten over that. It's always satisfying when it comes together. Of the hair grasses, my favorite is guapa grass, or Murphy grass, which is a plant that was discovered by a member of my local club not that far away from my house.
The white Pinto Anubias, just because of the marbling on the leaves, for whatever reason I find to be incredibly transfixing, and I end up staring at it for a good amount of time.
Today it is all about promoting aquascaping to the masses. So I honestly believe that aquascaping enriches people's lives, and I think the more people that discover aquascaping and become aquascapers, I think it can genuinely enrich people's lives and in a small way make the world a better place.
So the part of the hobby that really gets me most excited is all the stuff that we don't have here yet in the United States that is coming from overseas, like techniques, styles escapes, plants, and all these different types of things that we just haven't seen here yet in the US.
Besides the fish, the thing that gets me really excited about the hobby is meeting other people. Now that there's this whole YouTube family, meeting new people is by far my favorite thing.
I get really excited when I discover a small fish that I've never seen before. You might think you've seen everything, but you never will. I mean, there's always a new amazing fish that's been discovered, and that gets me the most excited. I'd say second to that only would be a really nice aquascape. That was an idea that I hadn't even imagined that someone could do.
I think the thing that gets me most excited these days is the diversity of plants and species that have become available. Instead of it just being thought of as a glass box with some fish in it, it's really turned into works of art and parts of the home, and I think that's really incredible.
I am most enthusiastic about meeting other people that share this very niche, kind of weird hobby, and seeing how other people do things differently.
The part that gets me most excited about the hobbies, it's the unique biotopes that are being researched more and more on a regular basis. Try to replicate exactly where this fish comes from, as opposed to building something that's only aesthetically pleasing.
I think the thing about the hobby that's always excited me is you could never know everything. There's always something to learn, and it humbles you to an extent.
Most people are trying to find the magic cure that is going to fix whatever problem they may or may not be having. And that's just sort of an affect of the 21st century. Like, isn't there a product for this problem that I'm having? And sometimes a lot of people are kind of thrown off by the fact that this might be 10 steps to getting to fix whatever problem might be going on. And I think that's the biggest pitfall. It's just sort of the lack of patience.
I think the number one pitfall is not buying enough plants and or those plants aren't healthy enough. So the early stages of an aquarium, a brand new aquarium, algae is super likely, and the best way to deal with that is to have enough plants and to look after them properly and to make sure they're healthy to start with.
People, when they first get into the hobby, have this major problem of when they see stuff online or they see, you know, these professionally done tanks, they inspire to be just like that. And what they have to realize is they're coming in with zero experience, most likely, into either setting up a planted tank or just a regular aquarium, and they're gonna learn as they go. Where these people that set up these tanks that they look at to inspire to be like have been set up by professionals that have been doing this for years.
I think one of the biggest pitfalls is that people don't do their research before they purchase, and they learn of issues with compatibility or the like as they go, which is often of great detriment to our creatures. Fish are often thought of as disposable, and I find that to be very troublesome.
I think maybe one of the pitfalls is not educating yourself enough about getting a fish and maybe taking care of it incorrectly, and it can be a real downer to get a fish you're super excited about, you're so excited to do something, and then it gets sick, or something goes wrong, or this beautiful planted tank you wanted to do crashes because you missed a step. I feel like that's one of the downfalls.
I think the biggest pitfall in the hobby, or at least the thing that bothers me most, is that it's almost impossible to know where your fish and plants come from. I'd really love if retailers would label fish as wild caught or farm raised or tank raised or sustainably caught, something that would let us know where the fish and plants are coming from. Right now that doesn't happen, but I'd like to see it happen in the future.
Big pitfall in the hobby for sure is trying to go super hard and just try to copy aquascapes, and then you get all and buy all these plants that are super expensive, and then you take them home and a week later they're all dead. Advice is to just take it slow and do things at your own pace, know your limit, and yeah, I mean, be patient.
I think one thing that people do for certain is overfeed their fish. And when you overfeed your fish, there's a lot of issues that can happen from diseases like bloat as an example, overfeeding. It can lead to algae issues when people complain about how the tank looks, and so many other things. And I think if you just think about what the necessity is for that fish to keep it healthy, you'd be surprised how much less you can feed them than you do.
The biggest pitfall I see people having is their attitude is just completely wrong, because they see fish as a disposable pet, maybe a pet to teach kids about death. I've heard people say that they're to teach kids about, if it dies, it's not as sad as if their cat or their dog died. And sometimes that's true. I mean, they do sit kind of apart from us inside of their little glass box. But really learning how the environment works, learning about the nitrogen cycle, doing just a little bit of extra studying that's going to keep their fish alive. I think that's the biggest hurdle that new aquarists have.
A big thing when people are getting into the hobby is not understanding the nitrogen cycle. And because of that, constantly having ammonia spikes and killing fish. And they just find it an expense and get out. Some will come back. However, a lot of the times it's due to the nitrogen cycle or playing around with the water too much. People chase numbers. So when it comes to the aquarium hobby, there's a lot of interesting things that we can measure because we can measure them. For example, pH. We look at pH as a number that we need to have specific for a type of fish. So in the pet store, there's tons of products that allow you to raise and lower your pH. So people are not matching the pH of their water that's coming out of the tap, but rather they're having constant and continuous fluctuations in your aquarium. So I've always said, what do you think your fish prefer? Do you think that they like the constant ups and downs of a pH and your parameters continuously changing, or do you think they would like something more consistent as opposed to what is ideal?
I've done a lot of things I'm proud of. I think being a co-founder of the UK Aquatic Plant Society in 2007, although I'm not very active on there right now, it's still a really proud moment, and it's still a very active forum with a really good resource for beginners and more experienced people to use. I think it's genuinely made a big difference in the UK in terms of how to look after a plant aquarium.
It's the people that tell me that I've helped them be successful with their aquariums as far as growing plants, because growing plants is actually a lot harder than it sounds sometimes, but also is very easy. There's just a huge kind of wall up that people can't get over it at first, but once they do, it becomes very easy and it's almost second nature.
I think my proudest moment is just growing my YouTube channel. Cresting my little milestones, like, oh, I want 1,000 subscribers, oh, I want 5, oh, I want 15, oh, I want 30, and I just see it go up and up, and I can't believe it.
When I came into this niche, people weren't using tripods, people weren't using good cameras, they were using their phone. Now I'm getting people to buy cameras, I'm getting people to buy lenses, and they're happy about it. They want to go out and explore and shoot portraits. I'm super excited about that.
Consistently breeding what would be considered difficult shrimp over and over again has to be the one thing that I would point to as my kind of happiest moment.
I'm proud of a lot of things. I think that I'm most proud of the fact that I'm having a real impact on people's lives.
Breeding bettas. Breeding bettas has been something that I've been trying to do for so long, since way back being a little girl and getting that first betta fish. I always knew that I wanted to breed bettas. So when it finally happened, that was probably one of the most exciting moments for me, is to actually watch something that you've kind of cultivated and that you've cared for, and just seeing them procreate I thought was super cool.
I think what I'm most proud of is when I make a video and talk about a subject and people respond to that positively. And when they come up and say, hey, I really enjoy your content, you really helped me on this, and then they bring up a specific video or a specific subject, and I realize that that's actually making an impact.
Well, I'm most proud of being a published author. It's something that I really never expected to achieve, but to see my articles in print all over the world and my book being used as a reference is something that gives me really great personal satisfaction.
Every time someone makes a comment and they say, wow, you really helped me, or you gave me a great idea, that makes it worth it. I mean, making a video every week for years, I've gone almost 4 years without missing a Sunday, and that's no breaks, that's no vacations. Every week I make a video. It's about, some of them have been 40 hours worth of work, like a whole work week's worth of work for an hour video on a Sunday. I'm really proud that I've kept that up. Oh, I wish I had an aquarium store. I wish I had a board game and aquarium store, but instead I fix computers and I make virtual machines, which are called linked clones. So technically, I run a clone factory.
When I'm not making YouTube videos like this one, I am a documentary producer and editor. I mainly focus on natural history films, so this channel isn't that far outside of what I normally do. But all of that's to say, I spend an awful lot of time behind a computer and a very small amount of time behind a camera.
So I'm a self-employed, full-time aquascaper, but it's not just setting up aquascapes, it actually covers quite a broad spectrum. YouTube is a big part of my work now, and that is the revenue from the advertising, but also from sponsorship and various brand deals.
So for my full-time occupation, I work for an electrical contractor and I run my aquarium business on the side.
I'm a fine artist, which I make murals and paintings. I'm also a contractor, so I do remodels and renovations of people's houses.
So I worked as a 3D artist. I did environments for video games and film and cartoons. I also do web development and building websites for people. I've written a book, and I have so many other little things that I do that kind of all grow into being one big thing.
Yeah, so for the past, I think it's been 4 or 5 years, I've been full-time on YouTube. Prior to that, given a lack of education, I would pump gas, I've made ice cream at production facilities, I've worked in the woods cutting trees down, I've done anything that would pay me money to put food on the table in a legal manner.
I was a veterinary technician as well as an art therapist. I also was a professional sculptor and mold maker for several years. I've had a lot of different jobs, but I primarily, my primary job is my family. Technically, I'm a stay-at-home mom and a housewife who has somehow managed to fill half of our usable living space with aquariums in order to share the species I'm really passionate about with the people.
So the last question goes to you guys. Have you liked this video and subscribed to this channel? If not, go do that now, and while you're at it, go subscribe to the other 11 channels that are featured in this video. Links to their channels are in the description of this video. If you do, write a comment somewhere that says that I sent you. That way people will want to collaborate with me in the future and I can do more of these videos, which leads me to my actual last question. If I do more of these videos, what questions would you like people to answer? Finally, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. Without their help, this video would have never been made. If you want to support me, go find me on Patreon. And with that, I will see you next time.